2, 3. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk Podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Very excited for today's session. I have none other than Mr. Jeff, or General Motor Jeff Hunter on the program. So, dude, excited to have you on here, man. How you doing?
Me too. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah, likewise, dude. So, yeah, man, I was mentioning that I caught a session that you did with a mutual friend, Sean Welsh.
Yeah.
Dude, man, people are I name him all the time on the show, man, but it's just because I watch his podcast religiously, and he always has really good insights and stuff. But anyway, man, I watched that session that you guys did together, and you know, I was like, dude, I got to talk to this guy, man, because I think you're doing a lot of the things that dealers need to be doing, man. So I'm excited to pick your brain.
Perfect.
Yeah, man. Before we get into it, though, I always kick things off with the background. You know what I mean? Just to kind of establish your experience within the industry. But tell us a little bit about how you got started, man, and where you are today and that whole deal.
I think I joked about it actually on that podcast, but
Yeah.
it's like that thing where I just always wanted to be a car salesman. No, like honestly, I think I've always been a sales person. I grew up in a family-owned power sports dealership, so I was always forced to be at the counter and talking to people and interacting with people. So, but anyways, that's where I grew up. I grew up in a power sports dealership, and things went a different direction, and I just ended up falling in the automotive industry because it was a pretty close, parallel, between the motors and talking to people and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I fell in that just shy of 7 years ago, 6 3/4 years ago, I guess it is now, and I'm loving it. Like I'm really loving it so far. So.
Right on, man. So let's just start with the question, right, that you probably get asked all the time, and that's the social media question.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you start that deal? And has it done what you expected it to do? Has it surpassed your expectations? Why did you do it in the beginning?
Yeah, you know what? So again, going back to the power sports dealership my dad had, I was actually involved on Facebook way back when, just because I knew that was just another avenue, a less expensive way to get across to people. And initially, that my mistake in doing it back then was more from I was doing it as an advertising thing, because again, it was in its infancy. The social media wasn't really as social, you know what I mean? It was more posting things and putting things up. So I think I could get away with advertising a bit more back then and putting product up and things like that. And that kind of just, so because of that, I knew as soon as I got in the car industry that it would be a great idea, but I hesitated quite a while for a number of different reasons. And the main one was I just didn't know the product well enough yet. As much as knowing how to sell, I didn't want to look like an idiot on camera or, and jumping into like a GM dealership. We got 4 lines and there's just so much to know. And yeah, so I think I dug my heels for a while, and we had a guy internally at our dealership who encouraged me to do it. And then one day it was just a random day. I'm like, I'm going to press that button. And I did my first video, and the feedback was great. And it just started rolling from there. But, the one thing about it is that it takes the time. And I think that was the biggest thing that surprised me, is how much time it takes to develop it. But then once you get to a certain point, then it really starts to roll. So, in fairness, I didn't really know what to expect as far as the return. I'm very happy with it. And now that I see it, it's frustrating to me to see that other people won't even attempt it when there's evidence to show, hey, listen, this works, right? So.
Yeah, but okay, so lots of different things I wanna mention here. So number one is, you said that you were afraid that you didn't know the product that well, and so once you kind of press the red button, it's very easy to be exposed. I guess is the best way to say that, right?
100%.
But at the same time, I mean, do you really feel like you need to be an expert at it? Let's say on our side of the business, like selling cars, or maybe talking about service, or is it more about talking about obviously the product itself, which in my opinion, I mean, it's just merchandise. It's a commodity, really. It's
Right.
what it comes down to. But the experience in which you have to offer at the dealership level and those things, I think that talking about that is a lot easier. You can project that a lot easier, and maybe you don't know as much about the product, but you can still create content and put that out on the social media channels.
Oh, 100%. I think, again, that was my assumption, right? Was that I had to know all this stuff, and I pride myself on knowing it regardless. But I think that was my
Right.
initial fear, and I'm sure it's the initial fear of most people. But I think authenticity in what I'm doing means more than anything else. In fact, sometimes making a mistake, just jumbling on a word or forgetting to open the door like forgetting the door is locked before you go get in one of your videos. Like people relate to that more, right? You're being real,
Yes.
you're being authentic, you're not so polished, and so sometimes uh, I pride myself in trying to be polished of knowing the product, but I don't think it matters that much. I think you're just trying to get something of interest and some information across to somebody, but not again not worry so much about all the little fine details because most people aren't looking for that anyways. So
Right. Well, and here's the other thing too that I wanted to mention really quick, because I think that this is kind of a side effect of that. Once you do that and you start, you get I don't want to say the courage, but it kind of is, right, to put yourself out there in that way. Something happens, right, because you start to prepare more. You know what I mean? You actually
yeah,
become better yourself because
yeah.
you start to prepare more before you do these videos and stuff. And then, a year down the line, you look back and you're like, oh my God, man, like I've really learned a bunch of stuff just by doing this. You know what I mean? Inadvertently,
100%.
it wasn't like the main goal of this deal, but you've actually, you know what I'm saying? I mean, has that happened to you?
Oh, 1,000%. Again, and especially where I'm from in the north, our main market is trucks. So, obviously that's something I focus on. You talk about every day, so it's easy to know. But like, I'm not about to go do a video on a new Cadillac CT5 or a Chevy Spark or whatever it is. It's not a vehicle I necessarily where I'm from that I necessarily talk about every day. But I'm not going to go do a video on it with not having a clue. So of course I do my research before I do that sometimes. If it's a product I don't talk
Right.
about every day, and there's no question, absolutely, that it doesn't help me learn because then the next time, it could be a week later after I've done the video and somebody comes and asks about it, and boom, I've already got the information because I just studied it like a week prior, right? So there's absolutely no question that is huge. Played a huge factor in my learning process actually along the way is by doing these videos. Yeah, like you said, it's a great point. It's made me force myself to learn something sometimes as well.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, I've watched your stuff on YouTube, and it's like, dude, this guy is like, man, like got that information in there. It's like there's a lot of detail, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I can just imagine you talking to a customer and being like, it just flows. You know what I mean? So,
Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing because they say that usually a customer buys off 20 to 30% of the product, and sometimes you get a bit of the verbal, what,
yeah.
but yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
Well, but I mean, okay, so I don't mean to pry, but if you don't mind sharing, if this has happened to you, if it hasn't happened, then it's irrelevant. But have you been caught in a situation that a customer actually knows more about the product than you? I kind of doubt that at this point.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it might be the odd thing where it's again like a Chevy Spark, and I haven't talked about it in 4 months because it's not a vehicle. Like again, just where we are, we don't
Right.
sell that specific vehicle. It's a great seller, but regardless, but no, it's very rare. And you know what? Like I'm sure maybe you've said this on the podcast before, and I know that some other people I know have said this before, and I have to agree with them completely. That's almost a pet peeve of mine to hear that because we're professionals, right? In the industry we're at. And again, I know that all the information is at our customers' fingertips, and I know that they're just going to be searching that one segment, not all the stuff you have to know. But like, if you're going to do it, you should know
You
the
got to
stuff,
do it.
right?
Yeah.
And I think the worst thing is if you don't know is pretending you don't know. I'm the first to say that if it is one of those oddballs that I'm not, just own up to it. You know what? I'm not sure. We'll go find out together. Or if they know that, okay, well let's double check that or whatever it is, right? But I think the biggest mistake is if you don't know is pretending like because that's where you're going to get caught with the people that do know all this information, right? So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, man. So the other thing that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to touch on was the results, right? So first of all, you're obviously using YouTube. Is your content 100% organic, or do you do YouTube ads as well? Is that part
no,
of your mix?
no, actually, I haven't done YouTube ads yet. Going into 2020, it's something I've been tossing around a bit. It's interesting because again, I think I use my different channels for different things, and um, but no, definitely I want to start using it because I think it's going to work. Our dealership has been talking about doing some of those some ads as well. But like I'm only at about 1,000 followers on YouTube so far, but I've only been doing it for a short time, and but it's been completely 100% organic. There's been no, I've never advertised once on there, although I don't think it's a bad idea going forward for sure.
Right, dude. That's amazing, man. And it's not just about the amount of followers, because look at some of your videos. I mean, they have thousands and thousands of views,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, I guess my point to that is that look at what you've been able to do organically with that channel and get in front of 10, 12, 20,000 people with one piece of content. And so, I guess my question for you, and probably the biggest takeaway from our session, hopefully, is what would you say to the people that are like, oh man, this doesn't work, like it's a waste of time, you know what I'm saying? Like, how would you answer that question, man?
it's crazy, right? Because well, that's where I was, right? So I can completely understand that, but it only takes sometimes one piece of content, and it can just blow up. Like I had one of my videos has like just hitting on 200,000 views now, and then I could post another last week that'll have 100. Like there's no rhyme or reason sometimes to what's working, what's not. And some ones I think, oh, this is going to be a killer, and it's not, and I have others that I don't think are going to be all that great, and then they blow up, right? So you never know, and I think again, you just got to take the time to do it in order to find out, and it doesn't matter if you're in a small city like Sault Ste. Marie, like myself, or a big city like Toronto, or Vegas, or wherever it is. You just got to do it, and you know what I mean, and to find out. And like I say, that the just like we talked about earlier, you learn things along the way regardless. Like, so it's never going to hurt you to just try it, right? It doesn't cost you
Right,
anything. Like I said, I've done no advertising.
dude. Yes.
So the whole idea is that this, like, again, as salespeople, we're our own business within the business. And could you imagine? I could only imagine that a sales guys 20 years ago, if they had a way to advertise themselves without them costing a single cent, every one of them would have jumped at that. So
I
that's what's
know,
crazy to me.
right?
That's what's crazy to me, that the guys that that especially the ones that are younger than me. Like I can maybe see some of the guys are on their way out, and you know what, they've already got their clientele. Like, okay, I get that, but man, I'm 40, right? And if you're younger than me and you're not doing that, like, what's going on? That's all I can say to that, really, honestly.
That's Dude, that's exactly my point, man. That's what I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, why are we not looking at we're just not looking at this the right way. You said it perfectly right now. Can you imagine if man, this is gonna be so bad, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Can you imagine if the old timers, had these channels back then? Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
it would
You
have
know
been
what I'm saying?
crazy.
Like, dude, well, just imagine them, with the Rolodexes or the yellow pages trying to find leads and
Yes,
stuff. And here
yeah,
you can put a video and you get, 100,000 views. I mean, come on, man. Like this
exactly,
is like a no-brainer.
exactly. No, 100%, 100%.
Okay, so now for the people that are listening to this and they're like, you know what, I'm going to do this deal, right? I just need, a formula, or I need to set it up, or, some sort of a blueprint. Is there a methodology, right, to the way that you produce the content, and not so much and like, oh, these are the steps, because you want it to be genuine, right? But I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's a process, right? I also don't feel like, we just talked about it. It's not like you just go out there and like you prepare and you maybe select the vehicles. You know what I mean? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I agree with that point, but then in the same sense, like, it's one of those things where you want to prepare, you want to know what it is you're talking about, obviously, but not to the point where it's robotic, of course, because again, going back to what I talked
Right.
about earlier, it needs to be authentic. So sometimes,
Yes.
like, a lot of my stuff is spur of the moment. It's, oh, we just got that new model in. I'm gonna go back to my desk and take 13 minutes or whatever it is, where other guys are having their smoke. I can take my break and and have a look at this and study it, and then go out and shoot a video on it. So and I think that, again, that's the most automatic. If you're thinking about something for 3 days or 4 days ahead of time, then that's when you're getting nervous about it and you're stumbling on it. You just literally have to
True.
go and do it, and just be, because that's, I think, where you're going to be at your most relaxed state, is when you just literally just go out and do it. But again, the only thing I would obviously caution you of is make sure that you don't make, that you cover your bases and the points you're making, because again, that's the only thing that I don't care if I make a mistake on something, but what you don't ever want to do when you're talking about a certain product or company is make an error when it comes to like a horsepower. I know it seems silly, but you got to just make sure you have those points down. And it's as simple as just have it like on a little piece of paper in your hand. You can always, I mean, I don't necessarily do that, but you can always have that peek at it just to remind yourself of something, right? You don't want to read off a script, and just give her. And I always tell people, like, don't do that 10 or 12 takes. As long as you have your points right, who cares if you jumble it up along the way? Because again, I think that just it makes you feel more real, more authentic. If you're doing it as a business and that's all you're doing, great. But when you're trying to come across as a salesperson, you need to be relatable to your
Mhm.
clients, and you're real. You're not this used car salesman. That you're not a real person. That you make mistakes, and you're just trying to get the information across. So
Okay, so how do you think that an audience receives that information? Because look, listen, no, we're not. I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk that said this, but we're not Mother Teresa, right? Like we're here to sell cars. That's the objective, and the audience knows that, right? It's not like you're doing that just. Obviously you have passion for your product. That's clear. It conveys in your messaging, but ultimately you're trying to move the unit, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Um, is there a how do I say this? Is there a way to or do you do it in your approach? Do you tone that part down where you don't talk about that aspect of it? You just focus on the information itself of the vehicle and hope that that's enough value to get the, or do you ask for the sale, or do you
No.
ask for the
That's
for
that's a
the
great that's a great setup, and I think maybe you already know the answer because you have seen a lot of my content,
right?
and I've got hundreds of videos, and whether it be on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or now TikTok, I know I'm old for it, but whatever, I don't care. And
No, dude, you got to be on everything.
I know it sounds super counterintuitive, and if I could talk to any salespeople that are listening to this podcast, is you don't sell on your social media. I mean, there's a time and a place for that, as I'm sure you're aware, which would be Facebook ads
Yes.
or YouTube ads, like you asked me earlier. Yeah, that's great, that's fine. To either promote yourself or to promote a specific product, but um, the whole idea behind a social media channel is to be social, to be interactive, to be a comfortable place where people can ask you questions and shoot the what back and forth. And I think that as soon as you start to sell on any of that, especially like a Facebook or an Instagram, for an example, you're losing people, man, because they are so inundated with the 0% and the low lease rates and like all this kind of stuff they hear every day from either the manufacturers, from the dealers, on in the newspaper, at the hockey game. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we hear this everywhere. So the whole idea, I think, with my videos and behind social media is to create value and entertainment for people so that they want to come back, so that they trust you. But again, no, all my videos, I don't talk about price. Like the odd time I might say like this is a toned down version, so it's a good deal to get into. Like maybe like kind of lean like that a little bit, but never. I don't think I've ever indicated a price ever in any of my videos at any one time. And I know again it sounds super counterintuitive for a salesperson not to sell, but there's a time and a place for that, and it's not what I'm doing. So
Right. No, and that's the reason why I wanted to bring it up, because again, I mean, what happens is a lot of people will try it, you know what I mean, but they don't have the right approach, right? And they're talking about the least special, or the you know what I mean, and the deal of the month, and I think that's when they start to lose a lot of customers, because we're kind of tuned out from that. You know what I mean? Like we don't want that on our social media, information consumption, if you will, right?
that's
Or on you know what I'm saying? Like we want the information. We want to feel like we're getting the information, but it's not at a cost to us.
for sure.
Now, but it's crazy, right? Because when we get that, then we feel kind of indebted to that source in some way, shape, or form. And if we can, return the favor with our purchase or whatever, then we're gonna, I think, opt to do that.
For sure.
But not because they asked for it, but rather because we feel like they're giving us so much value that the next logical step for us is to return that with a purchase.
And I agree. And
So
again, what I find interesting is that not only is it the odd salespeople that even have a Facebook page or whatever it is, but dealerships are making this. I believe are making the same mistake as well. I mean, the whole if you have a
yes.
Facebook page as a dealership, even again that it should be interacting, talking about the barbecue you're going to have next week, or what you've done in the community, or funny meme, or there's a dog at your dealership, or whatever, just to create like a community and like a feeling of home and providing them value. Maybe you have a new product coming out. Like, that's fine, tell them. But like, again, the advertising is just, it goes nowhere. And I think the easiest way you can see that is if you go to dealerships they're in a major center and they have 7 or 8 or 10,000 maybe people that like their Facebook page. Where it's very interesting, if you ever look at some of the ad ones that they do, right? There's virtually no interaction on them. There's hardly any views on them. Like, you're getting 200 views on a video, and you have 10,000 people following their page. Like, let's do the math here. Why is that, right? Because they don't want to see that anymore, and people are blocking those things out. And there's so many ways for them to do that, right? So, but again, you can still do that on Facebook. You just create an ad to do that, right? And it's a separate entity. It's a separate area from your actual page where you're trying to communicate with people. So, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it because it's frustrating to see, right? But it is what it is.
Yeah, no, man, I totally agree. But that's why. Look, I mean, you have the organic side of it. Try to grow that organically, and the way to do that is by the content, right? Create content that people are going to want to consume. But the problem is that we get into our own heads, right? And we think that, well, this is my opinion, obviously, but we think that we're going to create this content and it should be for everybody. And if it's not for everybody and nobody engages, then it's not good. If it's not for everybody, then it's for nobody, sort of a deal. You know what I mean? And that couldn't be further from the truth. You know what I mean? We got to create that content, in my opinion, this is my opinion, to impact the smallest group of people that are closest, that we can sell something to, you know what I mean? But not through the message, you know what I mean? But that are in our community so let me expand on this. Let's say you put all this content together and you're getting 20,000, 50,000 views. That's awesome. But what if all those views are in China? Do you care?
That's irrelevant, right?
It doesn't do anything for you. Okay, so I have 50,000 views on my channel. That's amazing. But not a single person can come and buy a car from you. So What's the point of that? You know what I mean? Like, I want to create that content and hit the smallest group of people in my area that I can impact.
Right.
And I want them to consume that on a regular basis and do something with it and engage with it, and and then ultimately have that content drive them to my dealership at some point, either for a service or for a purchase. And so we just don't look at that the right way. We're so concerned with the metrics, and we forget what the actual objective of that thing should be, which is to get that message in front of people that you can sell a car to. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, we're again, where I live specifically, we're not a car market really in any way, shape, or form, whether it be a little one or a big one. It doesn't matter. Cars, just it's SUVs and trucks all day long. And I still do video on cars because there's still going to be that segment of the market that wants that, right? So just because, I mean, my focus, a lot of my videos has been on trucks. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of different models, yada yada. But
and they're selling
that little bit. Again, it's that one person. And guess what? If nobody else is doing it, and that's the one they see,
right,
that's what they're going to gravitate. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the other thing, just to kind of hint on that a little bit too, is not only that, but it's not only what you're saying about not every video is for everybody, but again, the views and stuff. I mentioned that one at 200,000 views. That's just like a bragging thing for me. Like, it's cool that I got that, but that's YouTube, right? I don't even have 200,000 people in my community, right? Like, my city only has like 65,000 people. So obviously it's going further out than that.
Right.
Your different channels are for different things, right? So YouTube, you can focus on whatever you want, right? But sometimes if you tie these together, it's going to bring more people, right? But the YouTube thing is for one thing. I mean, man, as I mentioned earlier, I'm on TikTok, right? Like, TikTok, as we know, at least currently, is a much younger generation. Most of those people aren't maybe quite ready at the buying point, but they are going to be in 3 years from now, and I'm going to be bigger on that then. So, like, it's one of those things where right now it's not really doing me much, but maybe it will, right? And people are going to remember, hey, man, I've seen that guy, or I saw this. Like, it could be a stupid video, but they're going to remember me over anybody else, right?
Oh, dude, you don't even know it, but you're already buying their loyalty. You know what I mean? You're already buying their business, with your content.
That's
what I'm saying? It makes total sense. See, but yeah, man, I just I feel like we need to start looking at those things different, because what's happening, dude, and here's what I see a lot. Like, people do it, and then they don't get the results that in their mind are the results that they should be getting, and then they get turned off by it, and then they stop doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you're just not looking at it from the right angle. You think you're going to do a video out there, you're going to put it on YouTube and on Facebook, and all of a sudden the purchasing gates are going to open, and everybody's going to come flooding into your dealership and be like, "Oh, I saw your YouTube ad or whatever, your YouTube video, and here I am to buy a car." You know, it just doesn't. That's not the way to look at it.
No, and twofold. Right? Because number one, you have to generate that. It doesn't come overnight, regardless. And even like I've been doing it for like about 2 years now, and even then, like it's not like the floodgates are opening, but I am getting an extra. I'm getting, if nothing else, I'm getting that many extra leads per month, right? They're not even walking through the door. They're messaging me before they come. That person that's sitting up at the podium there, that other salesperson is not getting them. They're asking for me, and I couldn't put it any better way than I think. Sort of what we hinted on earlier is that it costs me literally nothing to do it. I'm learning the product as I do it. If I got even if I only got one sale per month to do it, like, what's the return on my investment there, right? Like, I'm not spending anything to do that, and I'm getting a sale out of it. So, like, and I'm learning the product. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, and I know that I'm not, my dealership included, but there's dealerships that are like almost discouraging their salespeople from taking the time. And I'm like, man, these people are advertising for you for free, like, and there's no encouragement there. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's just crazy to me.
It is crazy, man. It's nuts. And so to kind of piggyback on that thought, how important in this whole process, right, is consistency?
Oh, it's utmost. Like, it's so. Actually, I think I talked about this in one of my last podcasts. Was that I basically said, and I truly believe this now, and this was taught to me too, because again, I wouldn't have really thought about it myself, but I almost give myself anxiety. Maybe a weekend's a bit different, but during the week, if I'm not posting 1 or 2 times a day, at least on one of my, like, on my Facebook page, because that's more my local, right? I find my Facebook is for that. I'm getting a bit of anxiety, and because you have to constantly do that, and people think that so much, like, too much content, there's always going to be too much. If there's value in it, if it's not just content for the sake of content, then there's always going to be value in it. You got to remember that you could put out 5 pieces of content a day, but it doesn't mean that everybody's going to see all 5 of those pieces a day, right? So but the consistency, again, and this is the one thing I've learned when I was first doing the page, and I had like somebody that kind of helped me at the very start, and he basically said, like, man, you got to do this consistently, otherwise you're almost better off not to even have one than you are to have one if it's going to be half, right? Like, so if it's going to be half, don't even worry about, don't even bother. The consistency is because, then people are going to keep coming back. You're going to fall off super fast if you do a video now and you don't do another one for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is. And I see dealerships doing that too, right? You have a dealership, you have so many people that can give so many different ideas to put on there every day.
Oh my God.
You're posting once a week if you're lucky. Like, why do you even have that page, right? I'm being very critical here, but I'm just saying, like, either do it or don't, right? And all I'm getting is, I'm agreeing with your point.
No, I agree.
It's super important. Again, it's almost more important than necessarily, especially when you're beginning, it's almost more important than the quality of your content, which you want it to be, but like, it's the consistency of it just continually being there, right? I agree.
Dude, because here's the thing. You just said something that's very impactful. Like, it's almost better than the quality, and that's so true, because here's what happens, right? Your quality is going to get better.
100%.
Because you're practicing, right? And you're learning. Right. And then you start adding techniques to it or whatever, you know what I mean? The next thing, you start to edit and do all these things. And now, a year later, 2 years later, your videos are just, you look back and you're like, oh my God, did I actually put that out? Like, whoa, like, when did I, you know what I mean? When did I get that good, sort of a deal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you're not consistent, you will never get there.
And the funny thing is, I can tell people too, the time is reduced too, because I know the first video maybe the second video, the first one I probably didn't care as much. The second one I probably did like 25 takes because I wanted it to be perfect, and and I kept stumbling. I couldn't remember, and how am I going to word this? And like, I don't ever read off a script. I just go along with it, right? So you're jumbling, and as you get like, I just did a video the other day on a pretty high end truck, right, with a lot of information, and one take, done. That's it. So again, it's no different than working out anything. If you're in sports, you got to keep practicing that one thing until you get better at it, and it becomes natural. And that's the thing I can say too, is that if I could tell anybody anything too, I know it's hard to start, because it was for me. I'm sure it even was for you to get in front of the camera, right? And but now it's like, whatever. It's just it's old hat, right? And I mean, it even changed, because the first probably year and a half I did it, year and 3/4, I just did videos facing away. I never wanted myself in it. I don't like the way I look or whatever, right? But I didn't want myself in it. And like literally within about the last 6 months or so, I've really been focusing on like focusing the camera back on me before I do video, because what's the whole idea is you want people to know who you are when they walk in the dealership if they're not going to
Absolutely. Yes.
and it's been mad. Like it's been huge. Like now I go out anywhere in my city and I see somebody like, man, you're like all over Facebook now. I always was, but you just didn't see my face before, I guess, right? So they weren't, and a lot of people don't listen to the videos, right? So if
That's
they're not
so
going to
true.
listen, if they're not going to listen to it, but it's still going to come up on their feed, I might as well have my face there so they remember, man. Oh yeah, that's Jeff, right? Like, and hopefully I'll be the one that comes to mind if they don't already know that, salesperson, or even if they do, that they're going to come and see me. So all that stuff changes in time.
Yeah. So let's develop that for a second, man, because that's a good point too. So obviously the content is for the potential consumer, right? That's a given. But it does something for you as well in the sense that it makes you, or I don't want to say it makes you, but it almost does, for lack of a better word, but it makes you into an authority, right? Within your industry. Because, and here's how I look at it. And I don't know your market, right? But I'm going to assume that you're probably one of the few people that are doing content on a regular basis and putting that out there. Maybe the only person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when somebody thinks about a truck, or when somebody thinks about cars, or when somebody thinks about a dealership, or I got to assume that a lot of those people are going to see your face in their mind. It's just what's going to happen, right? Because you're putting content out there on a regular basis that they're consuming. And it's just like anything else. When you're not on for that particular product, it's nothing, right? You're just not thinking about it. But when you are, that content that you've been consuming on a regular basis is gonna come, it's gonna come to top of mind awareness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, would you agree? Is that an extra benefit as well?
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because it's probably nothing I really sat down and thought about. But when I do think about the clients I have been getting or messaging me, they're a lot of times they're first time new car buyers, right? Because so obviously I must be top of mind, because a lot of times if you bought 5 cars in the past, especially again in the city I am, we don't have a lot of turnover in most of the dealerships. So generally, if you bought a vehicle, odds are that salesperson's still there, as long as they didn't treat you poorly. A lot of people go back to the same people. It's just the loyalty of it, right? And so that's a great point that I didn't even really think about, is the fact that these people are a lot of times are first time buyers, and I don't know them from Adam, right? And what's interesting about it is I get to go back to the point you made about people not maybe commenting or whatever on your videos. So many times when I've looked now, so what Facebook is kind of cool, when somebody messages you over on the side, it shows you how long that person's been following you. And I sold a van a couple months ago to a lady that I knew, but she never really comments on stuff or whatever. I mean, she ran a contest that I did and whatever. But as an example, she'd been following me for the last couple of years and just came in to want to buy a vehicle. Like, she didn't go anywhere else. It was just all about, she has been watching me. She's followed me. She liked maybe the odd thing, but isn't really super interactive. And then all of a sudden she's there, right? So it just goes to show that, and she's been following me for the last however many years. So just because you're not getting those interactions with people doesn't mean that people aren't watching it, aren't seeing you or seeing your face or whatever, right? So, and again,
yeah, dude, absolutely. I mean,
again, I know that the embarrassment is like the whole face thing. Some people don't like how they sound, look, whatever. But like, you got to put your face out there. I actually just had a young girl at a dealership in Southern Ontario here in Canada. I've been getting people messaging me lately from like salespeople, like, what do I, how should I do this? And the one thing I gave her a tip was like, I don't even know what you look like. You're not even on there. So I could go into the dealership and I still wouldn't know who you are, right? That's great. But like, and it's great you're putting your pictures of your customers up with their vehicle, but like, who are you, right? I mean, so you're selling the product, as we talked about, but you're selling yourself as much or more when you're not even knowing it, right? So yeah.
Plus, you want that customer, in my opinion, right? You want that customer when they walk into the dealership to associate that dealership with you, right? They see your face, they already feel comfortable with you because they've seen you interact, they've seen you talk, they've seen you on video. I don't know. I think that's one of the powers of video in itself. I think that and I've said this multiple times, but I think that it's the quickest way to break the ice, right?
Yeah.
And so even if you don't see the customer themselves, if you send them like a video text or something as an intro, that customer sees you, and then think about how many people are actually going to do that. Not a lot, man. So it's a differentiator as well. So, I mean, for now, I mean, as we continue to go on this deal, it's going to become the norm. This is just the way that it's going to be. But for now, for the people that are willing to do like what you're doing, and the people that at the dealership level that are willing to communicate via video and all these things, it's just an advantage, dude. You know what I mean? So I
Well,
don't know.
and you made a great point too, because you said, and the point you made too is for now, right? Because that's my thought is it's going to be that way. So get ahead of the game. Like
Yeah.
you have a huge advantage. Even now, I've been doing it for about 2 years, but you're still like, because there's such a small percentage. Like I would implore, like I would ask most dealer principals or somebody that works for a manufacturer to name 10 salesperson they could think of off the top of their head that are doing this that they could recognize, right? And they probably couldn't. And
Yeah.
so that means that the door's open for you to have at her before, and then you're that much further ahead when everybody else starts. That's always been my argument with this, and that's the point that was driven home to me. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I might not be the greatest, but I'm going to be good, and I'm going to be that much better, and I'm going to have that many more followers and that much more interest in what I'm doing. When everybody's like, oh crap, we got to do this now, right? Oh,
Dude, can you imagine if you started this in 2004, where you'd be right now?
gosh, man,
Oh
yeah.
my
If I
goodness,
wasn't
dude.
like if I continued my Facebook stuff that I was doing back in the power sports side, and I didn't have that 5-year lapse where I wasn't doing any, or 4-year lapse or 6-year lapse, whatever it was that I wasn't doing anything, man, for sure. And I don't want to throw anybody else's name out there because I don't know what the affiliation is, but there is a guy that down in like Louisville, Kentucky, that sells Chevy. The guy's killing it on YouTube and all this kind of stuff because he basically is just one. I'm not discrediting him. The guy knows his stuff. Like I'm not trying to say anything about that, but like his huge advantage was he just started before everybody else did. And I know you know who I'm talking about. I just not trying not to throw names out there, but like it. And so I'm hoping that I can be on that second tier at the very least, and then that much further ahead, right? That's the hope.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I agree. I think we're still within our industry, we can still capture that, But man, I also think like, dude, if I would have started this 10 years ago,
Yeah.
oh man,
But there's dealers
So,
too that I try and like, man, on a dealership level too. If you can get ahead of the game, then even if you're just because you're not really concerned from a dealership, like again, where I live, we're a bit more isolated. But let's say you're in a metropolis. Well, first of all, you're going to be ahead of that many more Chevy dealers, for an example. But even your competition, if you could be that much more socially aware, have that be in front of that many more people, have that much more of a head start than all of your competition, and it costs you, nothing to do it, then why would you not? Like that's just it.
yeah, it makes sense. It just makes sense. All right, so I wanna, we're getting close to that time, but I wanted to ask one more question here really quick, and that question is about, the demographics, right? Because you would think that somebody that's in a single point market, right? How do I say this? Wouldn't look at social media, right? It would probably be one of the last things to do because there's just other mediums that quote unquote are more effective. And the only reason I say that is because that's the argument that dealers say. I don't believe that that's the case. But that's what dealers say. Well, I don't need to. You just don't understand. You know how many times I hear that shit, man? Oh, you just don't understand my market. It's completely different, man. Like people here still buy the newspaper, and people here still listen to the radio, and I get all those things. I'm not saying that that's not true, but you cannot tell me, man. You just cannot tell me that social media doesn't work because it has an audience.
100%.
Anywhere that you go in the world, it has an audience, right? I mean, would you agree? I mean, you're like the perfect guy to ask this question. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Put it this way, and I've never been asked this question before, but it's an easy answer. And the way I would look at it is this: if you did a per capita on any city in North America, you're going to tell me that less people are using social media in Toronto than they are in Chicago, or than they are in Sault Ste. Marie, or wherever it is you are. So I don't care how different you think your industry is there, or whatever. It doesn't mean that those people aren't still using that medium to search things, to look things up, like. And if you're one of the ones that are saying it doesn't work, or this is what works, it's because you're not doing the social media. That's why. And
Exactly.
the whole thing about social media that I couldn't get, like, to me as a dealer, if I was a dealer principal and I could track and I could trace, like when I do something and if I do a Facebook ad, for an example, or a YouTube ad, and I can see what the return is on it. Can you see that from a newspaper? Can you see that from a radio ad? Like, unless those people come in because you have this hook. Nobody does that anymore either. You know, oh, I heard the ad, so I get this other $50. It's not a thing. So you, to have a format which is inexpensive to do, the return on investment is huge, and then you also have the ability to track that. It's crazy to me that you think I don't care where you are in North America. The social media is going to be the way that it's going to. It's just going to be the way it is.
Right, but here's the other thing that we don't think about. You know, when we talk now, we're getting into this place within the industry that we talk social media, and we're thinking that we're relating that to the customer is there to buy a car or the customer is there to look for a car, and they're not. That's the thing. Like, they're not there to look for a car. They're not there to, they're there to, get their fix for the day, to look at their friends and family. So they're not thinking about what we offer. You know what I mean? So that's why, metrics and things of that nature may not look as good as maybe third-party sites or what am I trying to say? Or, you can argue against the data sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work.
Exactly.
And as a matter of fact, I would contend and argue that you're at an advantage when you do it that way, because a customer is not thinking about buying a car anyway, right? A lot of the customers there are not thinking about purchasing a car, which means to us in the digital world that we live in today, that customer hasn't spent 14 plus hours doing research, right? They're not thinking about, grinding you down to the price because they saw, 4, 5, 10 different models and they were pricing each one until they found the best deal that they can go into your dealership and walk with that printout and be like, hey, you got to match this price sort of a thing. And so, we got to understand the platforms where we are. I mean, social media, again, it's not a third party site. It's not your website. You're not looking to buy a car or anything like that. The content still works, in my opinion, because what happens is you capture that customer's intent with what you're saying and what you're presenting.
Yeah.
And there are advantages to that, but you got to understand what that customer is there to do as well, and make sure that you have those right expectations. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. I think that you're exactly right in what you say, because again, it's a relaxed environment. You're not forcing anything on anybody. It's just in their mind, subliminal almost to a certain extent.
Right.
But it's but also even on top of that is on top of the ones that aren't looking, there even still is the ones that are looking, right? And they're going to go to maybe my page and check out like they're going to search up GMC Sierra AT4. My video may come up, right? So now I'm providing value for that person who is searching. And I did that product 2 months ago, maybe, or that video 2 months ago, right? So it's not only important, like you say, there's not maybe a way to quantify it necessarily, but you're in that person's head. You're constantly there. Your dealership or you as a salesperson is constantly there. So when the time does come, yeah, right. Like you say, it's not just for the people. And I like I said, I couldn't agree with you more. It's not for the people who are looking that specific time, but over time, right?
Right.
And you're going to be the one that's at top of mind when that time comes. And again, I couldn't reiterate it anymore. Literally, a lot of this stuff costs you nothing to do, or if you are gonna advertise, it costs peanuts to do. I'm not involved with the ad stuff, for us as a dealership. Again, and I'm not trying to discount news, print, and all that, like print and radio ad. Like there's still a place for it, but the amount of money you spend on that for some dealers is crazy compared to what you spend on getting in front of. And the whole idea is just to get in front of people, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. My objective is always get in front of people and drive those people to your website, because on your website you're going to have the highest chance of converting, right?
Right.
So anything that you can do that's going to get in front of that customer, pull them into the website, I'm a fan of, right? That's why, I don't really like third-party sites that much, because they're not designed to do those things.
Right.
But, Facebook ads, YouTube ads now, the way that it sits today, you can create a window from the ad to your website, which is what you ultimately want. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Dude, thank you so much. This has been awesome, man. I really enjoyed our conversation. I enjoyed learning from your perspective. I think there's a lot of nuggets in here, and I'm excited to share this episode. There is one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, but before we do that, I want to give you an opportunity to, let us know how we can get in touch with you. Where can we get your content? Anything else that you got coming up?
Yeah, I'm all over the place. LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, especially on everything, basically, with the exception of Facebook. I'm General Motors Jeff, pretty easy to find. The full word General Motors Jeff. And then on Facebook, I am Jeff Hunter, or Jeff at Pro Chevrolet, just or Pro Chev, I'd say. So just, but I think if you search General Motors Jeff, it's still going to come up on Facebook as well, anyway. So, but yeah, that's how to reach me. This year I'm going to be creating a website as well, and it'll be probably generalmotorsjeff.com. I'm going to assume. I don't have the exact rights to it yet, but that's going to be in place there too. So you can get everything in one place as well. So that'll probably be in probably about a month.
Right on, man. We're going to put everything in the show notes too, so you can go in there and, if you didn't get a chance to write it down, just go to the show notes. Everything will be there linked up, so you can just go and connect with Jeff from there. Dude, I did want to ask you a question really quick, and I had it in my mind and it kind of slipped away, but SEO content, man, are you driving SEO? Are you giving your current dealership an SEO boost with your content? Are you noticing that? Because that's one of the things about doing video, right? It helps you with on the organics side of things.
Yeah, so we actually have somebody in our dealership that looks at that stuff specifically, but there's no question it's been indicated that it was. And so one thing I didn't even talk about is, as a salesperson, you hope that your own dealership, which is usually what's in place first, is going to boost you up. And then conversely, I've been doing, the same so we're both building each other up in that respect. Right. So I don't know the exact numbers. That's something that he sees. I'm just plugging away and doing my thing regardless, but there's no question we've both lifted each other's pages up as we've progressed, for sure. And gotten in front of more people because of it, because the name in itself. That's why I use Pro Chev on Facebook, because I'm tied to them on that. Right. So Pro Chevrolet. Cool. So.
Right on, man. Yeah, no. So I definitely wanted to make sure that we covered that, because there's definitely an outside element, or I guess not element, but benefit. Excuse me, which is the boost that videos generate. So, anyways, so there's one question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years, and why?
Oh man, I think a lot of the stuff we already talked about totally leads itself into this question, right? And I don't care what a lot of dealer principals say, or what a lot of industry people say. Like, social media, as I've talked about and preached about, is going to be a huge factor as we move forward, right? There's just going to be so much more of that. And as far as the industry itself, I think that the reason it's going to be so important is because more and more people aren't going to visit the dealership. Initially, they're going to do as much research online. They're going to know who they're going to like. So it's basically just a walk in and here's what I want, and here's the person I want to talk to. And the way to do that is, by selling yourself through social media. And I feel that dealerships are always going to be there. I just feel like they're going to be in a smaller capacity. It's going to be more of a, again, a lot of people are going to want to know what they want, but they want a professional to help them with that. And I think you're going to have, and I could be way off, but I think you're going to have less salespeople there. But the ones you do have are going to be the ultimate professionals at what it is they're doing. I think it's going to weed out a lot of these people who are just doing it as a thing to make some cash on, right?
Yeah, no, I think, who knows, man, right? Like, nobody knows where it's going to go, but I think that makes a whole lot of sense. I would actually like to see that more, just because I think that it would do a lot of good things for the stigma of the industry, which drives me insane, dude. Like, you know what I mean? So, for those reasons,
and I don't want to interrupt you at the end here, but that's exactly part of the reason why I do what I do, right? Is because, again, there's still that stigma around salespeople as being, I don't know what it is, right? Car salespeople, like, there's so many other real estate agents, whatever, that they don't look at people that way. I know. Yeah. So why are we any different? And actually, I think I heard you say this, but it's something I've used before as well. But it's the second most expensive purchase that we make, right?
Yeah.
So as people, so to think that, these people, that we're something other than real humans. And I think that's part of the reason why social media is so important, because you're humanizing yourself. You're showing everybody who you are. You're a normal person. Like, I share hockey stuff on there. So I relate to people, and they're like, man, this guy's not like this shady guy that's, this there to rip me off or whatever. Right. So.
Yeah, dude, it drives me insane, man. Like, it just drives me nuts. I can't, Anyway, we'll do that on part 2, but yeah. Anyway, thanks again, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. That's all the time we have for today, folks. If you haven't done so, please make sure to share this podcast, share this episode with somebody that can benefit from this information, so that they can take it back to the dealership and implement it in their day-to-day. Thanks again for tuning in. Jeff, appreciate you, man. That's all the time we have.
Appreciate
As
it.
usual, we'll talk later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.